I inherited my parents' house early in the year 2000. They passed away a few months before, and it still felt strange waking up in a place so full of their memories. I'd lived there most of my life, so the floral wallpaper in the kitchen and the old rocking chair in the living room felt like pieces of my childhood that never changed. Every morning, I'd see that rocking chair and think of how my mother used to read her magazines by the window, or how my father tinkered in the garage late into the night. Not long after they passed, I started considering a move. I had an offer in a different city. Bigger paycheck, better career prospects. Some of my friends even suggested going to another state altogether. But my sister lived only a few blocks away, and I couldn't imagine leaving her behind. She had 2 little girls, my nieces, who I adored. If I moved, I'd miss their birthdays, their softball games, their spur-of-the-moment visits. And honestly, I didn't have the heart to sell a house that held so many memories. So I stayed. Back in 2000, fancy home security setups weren't common in our neighborhood. Some people had basic alarm systems, but almost no one had a camera at the door. The closest thing I had was a bulky VHS camcorder stuffed in a closet somewhere, which I never used except for holidays. It never crossed my mind to set it up for security. I guess I just assumed that if someone came by, they'd knock. That's how it worked in the old days, or so I thought. One evening in January, I was sitting in the living room, which still had my parents' worn-out couch and mismatched coffee table. I was going through boxes of VHS tapes, mostly old TV shows my mother had recorded and labeled in her neat handwriting. The sun set early in the winter, so by 5 o'clock it was already dark. I'd turned on a small lamp near the couch, and the light cast a soft glow that flickered whenever the heater kicked on. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound outside, like someone taking a step on the porch. My heart beat faster. The floorboards on our porch tend to creak, but this sounded heavier, like a person's weight. I put down the tape in my hand and walked to the front door. I peered through the small window, but it was hard to see much. The porch light was dim, and there was no movement. I whispered, "Hello?" but got no answer. I waited another minute, unsure if I should open the door or not. Finally, I turned the deadbolt and stepped back. Probably just the wind or an odd creak, I told myself. Then I felt silly for being so jumpy. But that night, as I tried to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling someone had been there. The next day, I looked around the porch in daylight. Everything seemed normal. No footprints, no scuff marks, just a few dead leaves in the corner. It was quiet enough that I laughed at myself for overreacting. The following week, I came home from work at a local office supply store around 6 p.m. The sun had set, and the house felt cold. I turned on the overhead light in the living room and kicked off my shoes. Then I noticed my answering machine blinking, a small red light flashing near the phone. This was a cordless model, the kind with a long antenna that always seemed to pick up static if I walked too far from the base. I pressed play and heard nothing but a burst of crackle. The message ended. No words, just static. I shrugged, thinking maybe it was a glitch or a telemarketer's automated call. Later that night, while flipping through channels on my old TV, the phone rang again. I picked it up, said, "Hello?" and heard soft breathing on the other end. It couldn't have lasted more than 3 seconds before the line went dead. I tried calling back the number on caller ID, but it showed out of area. Annoyed, I sat there wondering if someone was pulling a prank. It made me uneasy, though I tried not to let it show. A few days after that, I was in the kitchen around dusk. I remember stirring a pot of tomato soup on the stove. Our kitchen still had the same pale yellow linoleum my parents chose decades ago. The heater clicked on, blowing warm air through the vents, and that's when I heard a thump near the back door. My heart jumped. The back door led to a small wooden deck, and it had a frosted window pane that let in minimal light. I turned off the stove burner, walked over, and flicked on the outdoor light. Nothing but darkness. Leaning close to the glass, I tried to see if anyone was there, but the glare from inside made it tough. I felt tempted to open the door, but a shiver ran through me. Instead, I locked the deadbolt and grabbed a flashlight. I switched off the kitchen light so I could see outside better. The small beam of the flashlight showed only a few scraps of leaves and some wet spots where the snow had melted. No footprints, no sign of a person. I exhaled, feeling my pulse in my ears. Maybe it was a small branch falling, I told myself. But it didn't sound like a branch. I decided to call my sister that night. She told me everything would be okay, that I might be hearing normal house sounds and letting my imagination turn them into something sinister. I wanted to believe her. Still, I started checking my locks more often, especially before bed. I'd walk through each room, turning the knobs to make sure nothing rattled loose. By the end of January, I got another offer to move. Different state, better salary. My boss had a friend at a bigger company who needed someone with my experience. It felt like the perfect time to sell the house and move on. I even set up an appointment with a realtor. Then I saw my sister's girls that weekend and everything changed. I took them for ice cream. We laughed as they got sticky chocolate all over their hands. On the drive back, I pictured myself missing these small moments if I moved away. I knew I'd always regret it. So I canceled the realtor appointment. The house stayed mine. My sister was relieved and even joked that now she could borrow sugar at a moment's notice. But the unsettling noises didn't stop. One night in early February, I was putting laundry away in my bedroom. I heard slow, steady steps on the front porch again. This time, I rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside. For a split second, I thought I saw a shadow. It moved out of the porch light's glow too quickly for me to be sure. I considered stepping outside to look around, but fear rooted me to the spot. I called my sister once more. She offered to drive over, but it was nearly midnight. I didn't want her or the kids out in the cold if I was just hearing things. We talked it through, and I promised her I'd be safe. I double-checked every lock and sat in the living room with the lights on, trying to read an old magazine to calm my nerves. Eventually, I fell asleep on the couch. A few days later, I asked some neighbors if they'd noticed anything strange. One said he'd heard someone messing around in his backyard, but he couldn't confirm who it was. Another said she saw a figure walking late at night, but that might have been a jogger or a teen sneaking out. Nobody had a camera to confirm it. Most folks didn't. Not in our area, not back then. We just relied on porch lights and a good, solid lock. Time passed, and the calls and footsteps gradually faded. I still have no idea who or what caused those late-night disturbances. Part of me wonders if it was just a random person passing through or testing doors, but I never found any damage. Maybe that's what kept me on edge. The thought that whoever came by never took anything or left any trace. I ended up staying in that house for many years, watching my nieces grow up and making my own new memories. Even though I lost some sleep back in 2000, I never fully regretted not moving away. Whenever I feel uneasy about a creak at night, I remember that sometimes the scariest part isn't what we see, but what we imagine could be out there. And in that old house, I had my sister's family close by, which made all the difference.